morning and welcome. Mr. Daugherty, I think you had the invocation.
Let's bow our heads.
Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, your wisdom, and your support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion and allow us to grow closer as a group and foster the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that will affect the citizens of Wayne County. Lord, please continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the greater glory of you and for the service of our citizens. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please rise and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody had the opportunity to read the minutes. So are there any corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes? That motion on the floor, is any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Adjustment to the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If with the board's approval, would like to remove number 1 under new business. In talking with the school system and Dr. Dunstable, we're not ready at this time, so we're thinking that our next meeting we should be ready for that discussion.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Commissioners, anything you need to change? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Been a motion on the floor. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Moving on. Special presentation. I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank this board and also the help of the WCDA board. We had a resignation of our WCDA director, and we went out and did a very expansive search for our next WCDA director. We didn't have to go too far. So we would like to introduce Mark Pope. Mark was the economic director in Lenoir County, and Mark is a lifelong resident of Eastern North Carolina. Mark has the experience, Mark has the background, Mark has the love of Eastern North Carolina that we truly need to sell this community. And we're excited that Mark is here. Mark will start on August 20th, but we really do appreciate Mark's willing to come work across the line with us in Wayne County. And with that being said, I want to publicly thank Tiffany Creek. Tiffany has served as the interim for the last 3.5 months, has done an absolutely superb job, and I just wanted to publicly thank her for the job that she's done. But with that said, I want to introduce Mark. Mark, if you want to come up.
Thank you, and thanks, Craig, for the introduction, and thank you. It's going to be a great challenge. I look forward to working with you folks. A lot of you know me. I'm one of very few words. I love to get up and talk. I love to talk about economic development. It's very near and dear to my heart because of having small ones and seeing them grow up in our community. It's satisfying to see creation of jobs and putting people to work. So that's very key to me. I've known Tiffany and the group over here for a long time, going way back to Joanna in those days. So very good working relationships between the counties. We've done the aerospace corridor. We look forward to doing some more things with that in the very near future. We look forward to some growth, some good projects working out there, and introduce some new clients to Eastern North Carolina. So when the day is done, we hope to create jobs and investment for our community. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Mark. And we look forward to you coming to work.
Any questions?
Yep.
No, well.
Okay. Moving on into the public comments. I'm going to open that up now for 4 minutes. You get 4 minutes to say whatever you want to say, and we'll be listening up here. And if you give us your name, your address, and your phone number, so it's open. You start anytime.
Good morning, Chairman, County Commissioners, and listening audience. My name is Charles Wright. I live at 200 Tanya Drive, Goldsboro. Phone number is 919-273-2099. I come before you respectfully requesting improvements at some of our neighborhood parks, majority within Goldsboro area that includes H.V. Brown, Minnie Well, W.A. Foster, North End, Quail Parks, and Flock Community Center, which is located in the Dudley area. These improvements could include new splash pads, basketball courts, picnic shelters, tables, activity gyms, and benches. I request the Commissioners approve my request for making improvements at these parks when funds from the Community Development Block Grant, Disaster Recovery, Neighborhood Facilities Improvements become available. And I just want to bring to your attention on the back of the first page in the News August dated, I believe, January 17th on the back, the last comments made by Mr. Chip Crumpler was that $700,000 for the Seven Springs Fire Station, they have received funds from another source, and that money would be going back into the Community Development Block Grant, that $700,000. That was announced January 17th. Fast forward 7 months, that money is still in the block grant. Now, I'm not questioning what's taking so long from January to August to put that money back in. What I'm saying is when that money does get back in, I would like this board, as well as the City Council, to consider putting money into some of these parks and playgrounds, which are strategically located in the neighborhoods that was most flooded. And if in good conscience you look at some of where this money is going, especially for the neighborhood improvements, it's not necessarily targeted at the areas and the communities that was most flooded. So I just want you to keep that in mind. And also, through correspondence with the North Carolina Emergency Services, had Mr. Crumpler mentioned this to you in open session, that this money needs to be put back, from my understanding through correspondence with the North Carolina Emergency Services, you have to get permission from them to change the budget if it represents greater than 10% of the line item. And it also will require a public hearing. So therefore, I'm secondary requesting that be introduced to you. You have a public hearing because it does represent 10% of the line item, and that if we have to come again and citizens have to come again, they come again, and they can voice where they would like this $700,000 to be spent. So we're not asking, we're just asking now that you look at this. As usual, I open up myself to any questions or comments or any clarifications that I need to answer, because once I read about it in the News August, it's not possible for me to answer. But I can answer now if any of you or any of your staff have any questions while I'm at this podium. I'll be more than glad. But I did include a pack of information to support everything that I said, so it won't be hearsay or Mr. Wright thinks this. It's something that you can read and look at.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wright, for your comments. Anyone else?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Commissioners. I'm Bobby Jones, 308 East Chestnut Street. Just want to further expand upon the allocation of the $700,000 and the use of it, and if at all possible, encourage a sense of urgency for our community, because the community is still suffering as a result of Hurricane Matthew. I've reviewed the Wayne County Hurricane Matthew Resilient Development Plan, and I see all your priority of items done. one of the things that clearly stipulated by HUD, it really reflects that the areas that were most major impact about the flood. And some of those areas are H.V. Brown area, the area that's near Arlington Bridge and Dudley. And I would like to recommend that some of the funding be used for some of those areas. In developing the grant to receive those funds, we took in the demographics of the Latino population in that area, of the minorities in this area, and that resulted in us receiving the grants. And clearly, when we utilize those funds, we should try to rebuild or do something in the area for the people that's impacted. And I ask that you take this into consideration and with somewhat of a sense of urgency. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else?
Good morning. My name is Leticia Zavala. I'm a resident of Dudley, and I come with a couple of our Hispanic families. We're here to voice the same concern. A lot of our families were unable to apply for this funding because of translation, or they didn't know the word didn't get to those people in time, and a lot of them lack a Social Security card. So we understand that there's specific requirements, but we would still like for some of those resources to be used in Dudley, in the community. We have a school that even with just the minimal rain, it will flood the parking area. And so when the kids are coming off the bus, they're having to walk through puddles, and they're going through school the whole day with wet shoes. So that's been a concern we've had for over a year. It was supposed to be fixed this year, and it still hasn't been addressed. So, and there's different reasons. They say there's no funding, and so if there is some funding that could be used in that community, we would really appreciate it. There's also, we don't have sewage on 117 alternate, and so we'd also like for that situation to get worked on. And there's a number of other issues. For example, we don't have a park in that area. So we're willing to have a meeting with some of our community members, and some of them are here as well today, so we can address some of the issues that have been of concern for now some time. So that's all I want to share.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Come on, Barry.
My name is Barry Merrill. I live at 432 Club Knowles Road in Dudley. I understand that the Southern Wayne High School gym and classroom project, the expenses to do it right, if you will, on that campus are a lot more than I think most of us envisioned when it first was discussed. And I know that part of what the principal there, Kevin Smith, who's a fine young man that attended Aycock High School, and I've covered Aycock when he was on the football team there and as wrestling coach up there. But Kevin would love to see that campus done right, if you will, and secured the back end. I think we're all concerned about safety on campuses, and dollars are real, and taxpayers want to make sure that they're used effectively and efficiently. We have a history in Wayne County of cutting corners, if you will, doing it, getting by as cheaply as we can. And unfortunately, we've got a lot of facilities that need a lot of work today. And I think y'all talk about the Will Sullivan building and some issues there. And I think y'all are making wise decisions not to throw good money after bad there. Again, if you can, please try to justify doing that campus right. But as the young lady just mentioned, we've got other facility needs in Southern Wayne County and on our Dudley campuses, if you will, our Brogdon primary and Brogdon middle school campus across the county. Mr. Gurley's school on 581 is in sore need of replacement, frankly. other needs in this county. So I particularly am encouraged by the push to put in a sales tax increase. I want to see some meat put to that, some muscle put to that, so that we can effectively push that through and develop a funding stream. Because again, we got a lot of facility needs that we need to address in this county, beginning in Southern Wayne. And again, hopefully that those bids will go out before long and come back in, and we can get started turning some dirt down in Southern Wayne County for the first time in a while at Southern Wayne's campus. But again, please put some muscle behind this sales tax. I appreciate the resolution that was passed, the promises, if you will, that were made by the county commissioners. But like I said, there's a lot of people that are saying, let's make some things happen. Let's get started on it. It's 3 months away, I guess. Am I right? September, October, November, when it's going to be on the ballot. Need some ads in some local newspapers, if you will, to push those things, and radio stations and other billboards and other places. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Merrill. Anyone else care to speak this morning? Okay, I'm going to close out public comments. Okay, moving on to our appointment committee.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we met this morning. We have one. We'd like to recommend the reappointment of Stephen D. Pete Benton to the Wayne County Planning Board. I put that's a form of a motion.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand.
That's all.
All right, thanks. Unfinished business, update on county office building by MHA Works.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Albie McLaurin is here with MHA Works, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name as well, so please forgive me. But as the board's aware, back in probably October, we hired MHA Works to begin looking at our county office building, which is currently the home of our health department and DSS. The discussion was, should we renovate that building or should we look at new construction? And we wanted to have a very good understanding of the costs that would be associated with looking at both. And so Albie is here with his recommendation and his report. This has been presented also to the Facilities Committee as well. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Albie. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We have discussed this with a group of folks, a Facilities Committee along the way, and one of the outcomes of that most recent discussion was to sort of streamline the information a little bit and make it easier to get everyone's head around. This process was originally begun some time ago. We and a team of engineers that work as subconsultants to us effectively went out and looked at the asset called the county office building. It's just shy of 90,000 square feet. We looked at all aspects of the building. We evaluated it structurally. We looked at the building systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. If I had to in a nutshell, sort of put an evaluation on that, the building was built originally as a hospital. Structurally, it's in fairly sound shape. I'd probably call it a BB plus from a structural standpoint, but the building systems, mechanically, electrically, plumbing, as well as the building envelope, have some issues. And some of the aspects of the building, I think Kendall has done an admirable job kind of keeping the wheels on. It's got a new elevator. It's got some new windows. But there are a lot of facets of the building that I would consider barely passable. And here you see some of the photos of the building. And anyone who is basically had to frequent this building for services probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. All of the subconsultants to us did go out and basically look at all the different parts of the system. They looked at all of the air handling units that you have. They looked at the ages of those. We started looking at when those things would need to get replaced. The way the building is currently designed, you've got a lot of smaller heat pumps, effectively, which is sort of atypical for a building of this size. And as you can see here in the previous photo, they're sort of put wherever they fit. That's great in terms of replacement capability, but when it comes to service, that's a challenge. So there are a lot of things with this building that if the county was going to continue use of this for some time would require a significant investment. So The reason that we were asked to look at this was to consider, can the building be better utilized than it's being presently utilized in terms of the investment that the county is making, or is another solution, possibly a new building, a better solution than investing a bunch of money in the maintenance and refurbishment and repurposing of this particular building. So to go through that evaluation, one of the first things we did was actually do a very accurate as-builting of all the floor plans. We went through with a large team of folks and really measured everything that you had. You had a lot of different files on record. We scanned all those. We digitized those into a 3D model. You can see here all the different floor plates of the building. About 47% is social services and 46% is health department. That 7% that's vacant is vacant for a reason. When I said some parts are barely passable, that's the part that's not passable. It was built as a hospital, so the net to gross ratio that you see there isn't abnormally high for a hospital, but is fairly high. What net to gross means in sort of layman's terms is usable square footage as compared to the total building, with that including the wall thicknesses, the hallways, the restrooms, the mechanical spaces, all of those types of things. If you look at those floor plates, there is a lot of corridor that in a hospital is required to be substantially wider than it would be in a health department or other type of office building. So when you look at the efficiency of the building, there's a pretty big number there that you could improve upon the efficiency. And I'll try to keep this brief because I'm sure you all have a significant number of questions or considerations that you want to pose. But the other thing to bear in mind is we were originally charged with really evaluating this from a health department standpoint initially. And through the process, there was some discussion about the fact that the way social services is funded, that it might be advantageous to actually look at a consolidated building. There's some accounting that makes it advantageous to have shared space that's funded by a different funding stream that would basically get more bang for the county's dollars. And if you look at COB, that's county office building, what we're doing in this chart is we're looking at the total number of employees. Those employees are not all in one location presently. They're in multiple locations. So a big part of our consideration was not just the condition of the building, but it's also the operational efficiencies or inefficiencies that you have. Presently, the check-ins happen on there's not a centralized check-in. Any modern building that you go into of this nature is going to have a much more centralized check-in mechanism. That helps from not just a cost standpoint, but also from a safety standpoint. There are multiple different aspects. Think about this building and the way it operates, and that centralized check-in is key to what happens here. Having health department employees in multiple different locations, in some regards, some of those employees that are here in the courthouse probably have a reason for being here, but there's also an argument to be made for having all of those employees under one roof and basically having that more centralized. So we also looked at the total amount of gross square footage that all of those different functions occupy. You can see it's just shy of 120,000 square feet. And it does consume, this is something that we did not want to overlook. There are a lot of parking spaces associated with all of these functions. There's some fleet parking, there's all the employees. You've got 338 employees plus the fleet parking plus all the visitors. We've also looked at the total number of employees. The upper subsection in green is the health department, and below that is social services. So you can see once you evaluate the total number of employees and the number of visitors per day, that it's roughly equal in terms of the volume of use. Now, I think this is really the graph that's going to get to the meat and potatoes of what we've been asked to look at. We do a lot of work in Eastern North Carolina. I'm one of a handful of partners with MHA Works. We're one of the larger architectural offices in the state, and we do a high volume of renovation work. So we have a pretty good finger on the trigger for what goes on with renovations. We've worked with a lot of contractors here in the Goldsboro area. I'm the manager of our office in Greenville. The first bar that you see there is represents if this building were vacated and we could just go in and renovate. What do we think that cost would look like? We're actually doing a 90,000 square foot renovation right now, was in similarly poor condition in Greenville. It's not the same use, same square footage, has a lot of plumbing, a lot of similar aspects to what you have in this building, and that cost per square foot that's represented there is that cost per square foot. There's minimal site costs, there's abatement cost, very analogous numbers. That project was delivered as a construction manager at risk project. Bids came in a little bit better than the construction manager was estimating, but those numbers really reflect that on a cost per square foot if you were going to go in and renovate this building. The next bar graph over, if you were to, obviously, if I go back here, you can see that the building is well utilized, even though 7% is vacant. A lot of the corridors have become default waiting spaces, things like that. So in order to renovate this building, if we were going to try to do that in place, the challenge would be you would have to phase this astronomically. You'd have to move some folks out or do multiple small phases. And that's going to drive the cost of renovating in place while you're operational dramatically up. You'd have to work some night shifts. So that second bar really represents the upper and lower threshold of that being if you tried to do it where you moved. Under the previous county manager, one of the things that we were asked to consider is what happens if social services is no longer in the building. And that's the reason that it would be even something we would entertain, because then you have two phases. So the lower bar there is a two-phase sequence. If you have to do it without being able to move folks out, you're talking about a lot more phases. So if you look at that cost, that's what's represented there. Now the interesting thing in the third graph, and I think this is where a case could really be made for a new building, if that's what the county wants to entertain, is that there is a very poor net to gross ratio in the building. You've got about just shy of 120,000 square feet of space. We feel like because of the net to gross ratio and the fact that there's some operational efficiency to be gained, that we could get all of the functions into 90,000 square feet if we're a new building. So that's a lot of servicing of all of that square footage that you don't have to do on a pretty significant addition. The darker color at 287 represents what the cost would be to build a building on this property that you already own. Now, I'll show you a graphic here later. The 750 is if we build this new building, then you still have the old county office building. What happens with that? Where you're going to have to take that down, you're going to have to abate it. That's going to be a fairly significant cost. And then you would also have to repurpose that site, some of which was repaved recently, but you would still have to integrate whatever the parking is there to the overall picture. So you'd have some costs there. Now, to compare apples to apples, the darker color in that third chart is really most analogous to the upper and lower thresholds in the middle chart, with one exception. You get the Borden building back. So you get 26,000 square feet back that you don't get in the other scenarios because you're consolidating it all under one roof. So from my vantage point, if that's the way the county wanted to go, that's really the reason to think about that in a very real terms. We did go through to figure out square footage and what would work. We looked with every department that you have, how much square footage they need, how much square footage they use, are there folks growing or shrinking? This is just the summary page. We have this information in much more detail that will be presented to all of you in a forthcoming report that has all of this type of information so that you can ask more specific questions. We did not feel comfortable making the building smaller than this because you are consolidating, in the third scenario of a new building, all of the employees under one roof. So to go from 117 to 90 is still a big improvement, but that's going to save the county a lot of money operationally. This is one of the last graphics that we have, and what this does is the ghosted image of the building that you see on the right-hand side of the page is the current facility. There's the original portion, which is sort of the box in the upper right-hand corner, and then the L-shaped section is the taller portion of the hospital. And then the idea would be that we could build a 3 to potentially parts of it might be 4 stories, depending on how the floor plates would work, new building with minimal impact to the other facility, so it could stay operational. You could build this building and then, once that building is built, you could move out and decide what you want to do with the vacated building. So what we wanted to do here, I'm not saying this is the way the parking would lay out by any means, but we wanted to say that if you're going to consolidate all of these folks into one spot, you're not going to be able to leave that building footprint just like it is, because there's too much parking burden on that site. So you would have to consider that in the context of everything else. So the idea that you could just leave the building completely as is and refurbish it would, one, you would have a parking burden associated with that square footage, which would further tax it. But as you can see here, you're probably 70 to 100 parking spaces in excess of what you would really require for the parking burden associated with the building. And that particular parking burden also is going to be much closer to what you can actually fit on the site, because we're not taking into account ADA parking spaces, requirements for street trees, the fact that you can't just pave this whole section of property from a stormwater standpoint. So there are a lot of considerations there that are going to impact physically how many spaces you can fit on that site. So with that said, I think I can open the floor to any questions that you all may have.
Questions? Yes, sir.
Did I hear you correctly that the new building would be 3 or 4 stories?
Yeah, so what I've shown here is the floor, that's the amount of square footage per floor plate. So we would need to build, if everything did consolidate under one roof, you would be slightly bigger than 3 stories. Now, it could be that, when I say slightly bigger than 3 stories, part of the building, you can see there's a small shadow line where the one square section there on the graphic is a little taller the way it's modeled. That's basically considering that part of it further away from the residential sections, we might go a little higher. We're trying to be respectful of the scale of buildings and kind of keep the taller massing as close to the primary commercial corridor as possible, just in respect for the scale of the adjacent building.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Follow up. So we don't have enough property, Craig, we don't want enough property to get this building in 1 story, because that was my impression, that we were looking at trying to get these 2 departments in 1-story building.
Not at this location for 1 story, no, sir, we did not.
We don't have enough room to build a 1-story building and yet keep the old building in operation while the new one's being built. We've got to go to 3 or 4 floors.
We got to go up, yes, sir.
In this location. If we were going to build in this location, I mean, if you think about the area that's shown there in green and yellow, the parking spaces alone, you've got over almost 340 employees in this building. If you look at the area in green, that's about that number of parking spaces. So, if you think about how much area that alone is taking up, that puts the scale of the site into context. It doesn't really show up here because you share a lot of parking from a courthouse standpoint. The Borden building has an off-site parking space. So once you consolidate all of those parking spaces into one concentrated area, it's a lot of parking.
That's, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm on the DSS board and I'm asking these questions. But it looks like to me if we go with a new building, 3 or 4 stories, we're defeating the purpose of moving out of the old COB. The reason we're moving out is because of the building, of course, the shape it's in and the renovation costs. But the main thing right now is that the small rooms or small offices, there's no open space at all in that building. So that's why I was under the impression that we're going to look at either building 2 separate buildings. If we can't build one for both, maybe looking at 2. And I know there's a lot of different things out there as to our alternatives, but I'm not pleased with us being more than 1 story because of communication between not only in each department but between the health department and DSS.
That's an excellent point, and one of the reasons that I think that we could make this work, I agree with you completely, that 1 story from an accessibility standpoint, from access, is wonderful. We were asked to really consider this particular piece of property, but if you look at other facilities that have recently been built, I think Onslow County has a new human services building. Their population is maybe 60,000 more as a county than you all, and their building is roughly the same size as the building we're proposing here, but you all serve more head count on a regular basis, so that's what's driving your need for more square footage. But their building is 3 stories. And what they do, and if you look at the net to gross numbers, so if you look back here and you look at the health department, all of the critical functions of the health department that are not administrative could be located on one floor. We've sized the floor plate that way. All of the critical functions of DSS could be located on one floor. There are certain spaces that do not necessarily have folks coming to them on a regular basis. Onslow County, what they did is they located those farthest up in the building. That's what we would propose to do in this particular location, is to think smart about how we're segregating uses so that you don't defeat the whole purpose of trying to consolidate your check-in. It works here in this building. You've got different functions that happen on different floors. I completely agree with what you're saying about efficiency, but in the context, land is expensive. In the context that I think that we can make this work, all of your patrons are used to coming to this location. There's some value to be gained in that. All your network for transportation has a hub here. So if we were asked, can we make this work and what makes more sense, renovation or new, I would still say at this juncture, based on what we've been charged with doing, that a new building in this location could be made to function just as well as the new project does for Onslow County. There are others. That's the one I'm most familiar with, and that opened about a year ago. At a cost of about $277 a square foot.
I do have a question.
Sure.
If we made a decision, and I'm not saying we've done this because we've got a lot of talking we're going to have to do, and decided to move DSS completely somewhere else, you could build a health department there under one roof in one story.
We could do that because what happens then is your parking burden is half. So at that point in time, you don't have quite as much cost in redoing your site, and your building, you may still want some of it to be 2 stories just because you have some other 2-story buildings along that stretch of road, but those will be administrative.
But the essential services could all be on one floor.
Yes, sir. So, but I still think that even with the scenario that we're putting forth today, that all of the core functions of each group could be on a floor, and what that would afford you in the program when we pass along the final report for this entire study is that there are certain spaces that could be shared, large meeting spaces, things like that, that if you separated the facility, you would probably end up duplicating those, or if you didn't duplicate, you would have some logistics of meeting in an alternative location. So I do think there's some efficiencies to be gained that sort of offset some of the challenges with building on multiple stories.
Okay. Back again.
I don't know any departments in health department and DSS, maybe income people taking clients in might be combined, but I served on the health department board and the DSS board, and the two departments their mission is completely different. And my concern is that the same problem we have now, going to multiple stories, pay me now, pay me later. We know the health department and DSS, we haven't done a study, but because of the layout and the number of floors in the COB building, there's a possibility, don't hold me to this, remember I said possibility, we could save in the number of employees we need because of the layout. And so that is a concern. So I still make the point, pay me now or pay me later possibly. Right. That's why most of the department heads that I've talked to in these departments would like to see us, whether it be in 2 locations or 1 location, be on one story. So.
I mean, there's a very fair case to be made for that. I mean, if you split and you have 2 different locations, you have 2 secure check-in points, you have 2 sets of security, you have 2 of everything. So I think that's a little bit of a different charge than we've been asked to study to date, but we'd be more than happy to evaluate what we have here versus that as a scenario if that's something that the county would like us to entertain.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If you were making a recommendation today, what would you be, just in a real concise manner, what would you be recommending? Would it be a 1 tall building, 4 stories, if that's what it took to put both DSS and Board of Health in one building, or separate, what would you recommend? Because I hear all these conversations. What would you recommend?
There's a lot of information here on the table. And so one of the things at the facilities meeting that I was asked to do was kind of to condense this down. And the evaluation that we've been charged with making as a part of this study is, does it make more sense to continue to renovate the building, whether it's piecemeal or one entire renovation? Or do we try to build a new building on this site? Those are the only considerations that we've been formally asked to look at. And in the context of that, I do not think it makes sense to continue to try to renovate this building in place because it is occupied to 93%. If it were occupied to 50%, the calculus changes completely. The previous county manager actually said something to the effect of moving social services out, and that changes the way that we look at all of the numbers, because then you have a building that's vacated to 50% and it becomes a lot more attractive as a proposition. But based on what we've been asked to do to date, I think that it makes a lot more sense, because you get the Borden building as county swing space to build this new building on this site. You get 26,000 square feet that you can use for a lot of critical functions that you need as a county, and then you can decide what to do with the vacated building, because you still have an operational brand new building. You're not under any pressure to continue to provide the services that you have to provide. Parking might be a little tight. You can park other places, but you've got a $3 million take that old building down and do something with that site that doesn't need to happen to make the building functional, to move the functions into the new space. So from that standpoint, I believe that there's a strong case to be made for building a new 3-story building on this site with parts of that maybe rising to 4 stories. I think there's a strong case to be made for that. Now, if you ask me, sir, back to the question that Commissioner Mayo has asked, this study versus 2 separate sites, I can't speak to that because I haven't made that evaluation. I haven't looked at those sites yet.
Right. And again, if you do remember, we were just specifically looking at this site, and we were looking at renovation versus new. And the reason why DSS got thrown into the mix is because the additional funding that DSS can bring to it from the administrative costs to help with any new construction or renovation that we do. So that's why DSS, originally we just started looking at the health department. But one thing Albie said, and I think is really important to remember, is if we did renovation, we'd still have to move everybody out of that building. And you're talking, as Albie said, the swing space. Number one, we'd have to find space. Number two, we'd have to renovate the swing space. Number three, we'd have to put the facilities in for internet and IT and those type, that you're probably, I'm going to throw out a couple $1 million while you're doing that.
Right.
So that's where we then started looking at, well, does it make sense to move it into the parking lot that is next door while they were still working in the COB? So that's kind of the thought process to this point. But as the board's aware, one of the things that I found out about Wayne County facilities, it is a puzzle. And there's about 1,000 different pieces. And we're trying to move around some different pieces all the time. Commissioner Bell has made some great suggestions, especially dealing with probation. And so we've got a lot of options, but we're also going to have to make some decisions as well moving forward.
And I think that's the other thing to think about, is that Kendall's done a very admirable job trying to keep this building functional. They've done some aesthetic upgrades. But what you don't want to do is invest a bunch of money into building systems that cannot keep this building functioning the way you need it to function to serve your clientele. And that threshold, you're going to cross that threshold in the next 10, 15 years if you don't do something. So I think the cost of doing nothing is greater than the cost of making a decision.
And also, to go back to Ray's point about staffing, we have separate welcome entrances on each floor. First floor is health, second floor is DSS, third floor is health. So we have welcome areas, we have staff, we have receptionists on each of those floors. So there is, the thought process about a consolidated in one building is you could consolidate those type of services.
Yes.
I am somewhat puzzled by this chart.
Okay.
Where did you come up with the square footages that would, is this the current requirements?
No, sir.
Or where did this come from?
So what we have done as part of this process, and we were originally charged with looking at just the health department. So we had more meetings over the course of this study with the health department folks and feel more strongly about the numbers that we vetted out there because we had multiple iterative meetings with them to say, what do you need? So what we did was we looked at what they have and we compared that to what would they need to function the way they want to function, as efficiently as they want to function. So the numbers that you see there are just the net square footages. What happened?
That was in consultation with the director there at the health department.
Not just the director. It was a broader scope of folks. But yes, we did the same thing once social services was entertained with everyone from social services. So we held a meeting. But if we were going to truly look at how efficient we can get, what I would want to do and what our normal process would be to put forth, if we had a one-story building, if we had a three-story building, we would put forth layouts that physically show the operational adjacencies of the various functions within the building and say, does this work for you all, the heads of all the departments?
So you get into the meat of my question, really, where I was going, and that is, you really haven't vetted to improve efficiencies as far as square footage.
Right.
You've basically gone through and analyzed what the needs are.
So we've analyzed the needs, but we've also looked at, so there are two big chunks of efficiency to be gained. One, from a building standpoint, one is the net to gross ratio. The current building is 1.85. That's very low, very low. What we're showing in the chart that you're looking at is 1.7, which 1.7 is not phenomenal, but until we suss out the working relationships, I don't want to commit to 1.4 as a workable number because that's already a dramatic improvement over what you have now. Plus, you also have the other side of this where your square footages that we're showing for health department and social services there do not consolidate the other locations yet. This is just within this building. So once you add that in, your total gross square footage is 117,000 total gross square feet. So to say that we can make that happen in 90 is already a huge savings, but for me to say you can do that in 75 or 78 really is a leap of faith until we suss out, to your point, what are the open spaces that make the building work? What are all those things that you expect in a new building? And once we do that next iteration, what we would need to do is sort of finalize our study, say here's the direction, and then we would basically get back with all the different user groups and have 2 or 3 different layouts and figure out what's the most efficient. That would be sort of the next step of the process.
And the last point, just the meat of all this, if I can find that chart, hold on a second, and that is, from what I'm understanding, the cost to build new is basically a few $1 million more than renovation.
That's true.
Is that correct?
That's true. Plus, in this scenario, you look at the 23.4 as compared to the 25.9.
Right.
We feel pretty good about those numbers because the 23.4 is a project that we just did. We opened bids 2 months ago. So we feel pretty strongly about that number being a real number in Eastern North Carolina. The new construction, to make sure that we're thinking about apples to apples, we had to pull out, you've got about a 5-acre total contiguous site. To build the new building, you're not going to touch all that because you're going to keep the building operational. If you want to take that building down, you don't necessarily do that in the other 2 scenarios, so it's not really fair to evaluate it that way. So what we're showing here is you could build your new building, have it operational, functional. That includes the parking associated with that side of the parcel, just not taking the other the other side back and repurposing it. So that plus getting the board building, I think is a lot of bang for the dollars. I mean, I think that frees up 26,000 square feet of space, which is a nice space. I mean, that's the nicest space
That's the
that
big
you
bonus
got.
of the whole thing, and that is you get the boarding building.
Right.
Well, and also in having the conversation with Tammy is really difficult sometimes to manage in different buildings, and it would be very advantageous to have all social services under one roof.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Anyone else?
Yeah, we have different plans here that we're looking at. You know, so the facilities has several suggestions in front of them, so that, you know, we'll all just massage everything and come out with what we think works best, you know.
Well, and this gives us our basis for moving forward, because really what to do or not to do with the county office building is really the linchpin, you know, in the grand scheme of things, because that may be your biggest cost as well. So it really is the linchpin of what you want to do moving forward. So really do appreciate the work Albie and his staff has done. And as he said, met a bunch of times with Kendall, met a bunch of times with staff and the facilities committee to have these type of discussions. So we really do appreciate the work that you've done to get us to this point.
Well, thank you. And, you know, even in the consideration, and I don't mean to be long-winded, I know there's other folks that need to speak today, but in the consideration of moving social services to an alternate location so that it's all one story and building on the remainder of the site for just the health department, I think that's a consideration, but the county is still then going to incur the cost of what do you do with the old COB building. So what I tried to do in that bar graph is to really kind of capture that as a separate cost, because it's not just going to sit vacant. So I think hopefully that's useful to the county.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. We got broadband folks here today to give us an update.
I'm sorry, our internet is down.
I'm just joking. We're not your provider here. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. I'm Alan Fitzpatrick. I'm the CEO of Open Broadband. Most of you remember me from previous conversations. We're really excited about the work we're doing in Wayne County. We're getting a tremendous reaction from the citizens. We're getting so many signups. Our challenge is going fast enough. We like to go faster, which is probably what you're hearing as well. So I want to give you an update of kind of where we are. I broke it into three sections. The first is our network build out. As you know, we're building a network from scratch in Wayne County. Then I'm going to have my colleague Jeff Presley come up and talk about some of the customer activations we've had and tell you some of the stories. And then thirdly, I'm going to tell you where we're going forward. And we're going farther than the pilot program. We're already going into full deployment, as you're going to see. So far on the network side, we have signed contracts for 10 vertical assets. I say vertical assets instead of towers because sometimes rooftops can be a vertical asset, like 139 West Walnut. We have signed contracts with 2 of the Wayne Water District towers. We have 4 town towers, 3 in Mount Olive and 1 in Fremont, and 4 other locations. The other is an interesting category for us because it includes a rooftop like 139 West Walnut. It includes grain silos, elevators. It also includes some towers that some of our customers have and they're willing to donate to our use. So these towers tend to be the lowest cost for us. So we try to find those as often as we can. There are 2 more that are currently being negotiated. So we'll soon have 12 different tower locations in Wayne County, which is critical for us because that's where we put up our antennas and that determines coverage area. Sometimes our tower costs can be prohibitive. Mel Powers and I were talking earlier about some of the costs we have to incur when we're working with towers. Wayne Water District has been terrific to work with, and Steve Hamilton has been terrific to work with. So I want to put that on the record, how good they are as partners with us. However, we do encounter costs to actually go onto the water towers. This is a contract from Southern Corrosion, who is the maintenance provider on the water towers, and we're having to spend over $6,400 just to put up the mast. So this is not coming from the water district, this is from their vendor. When you look at it from our standpoint, looking at a $6,400 cost, in addition to the cost of our equipment, in addition to paying tower climbers, we're over $10,000 on a tower. We're trying to provide service for $39. You have 10 or 20 customers in an area, you start to do the math in your head, you're like, hey, this thing doesn't pay off for 4 or 5 years. That's why we've tried to go slow on these types of arrangements. The contract that you see on the screen is one I just signed, and we are going to do this in Seven Springs. We're biting the bullet and we're paying this fee because we got to get Seven Springs up in service. But I'm going to try to avoid this as much as I can. So originally we were thinking, well, gee, we'll go on 20 different Wayne County water towers. Looking at these types of costs makes us look at other options, just like any prudent business person would do, right? So we're taking a very pragmatic approach, and the net result of this is we are here to stay. We didn't just come in here to do a pilot program and then say, we're done, see ya, good luck. No, we want to provide internet service for years to come for all the people that are interested. So we are patiently acquiring some low-cost infrastructure, and some of the examples are Sutton TV and Radio, if any of you know those folks, on Baker Chapel Road. Van Alphen Insurance. Van has committed that he will put up his own tower in order to serve the local area. University of Mount Olive has a farm campus to the Seven Springs side of Mount Olive. They're letting us use their tower. West Walnut Street, of course, we're using here in town. We use the higher cost towers as last resort, where we just have to do it, but we try to find some of these other examples. And the end result is we're being very financially prudent. Again, we're here to stay. Every site is going to have a business case. The results sometimes make us go a little slower than we would like, but we're trying to make sure we're making the right decision for the long term. These are a couple of the interesting vertical assets we've been able to get on. On the left is the Sutton Radio and TV tower. It's a very nice 200-foot tower that Harry Sutton was very agreeable for us to be on his tower, serve the local residents. All he asked for in return was internet service for himself. There's no structural analysis fee. There's no mast fee. That $6,000 expense does not happen on his tower, which is why we jumped on that opportunity. The one on the right is a new tower with the Mount Olive Farm campus. Again, that one was free for us to use as well. We're actually providing service to the university. Some more pictures. On the left is the water tower in Mount Olive by the airport. So we're using that for a lot of customers. This is a view behind one of our antennas that shoots back at the water tower. The bottom is my colleague Jeff Presley. He's on the top of 139 West Walnut. We do appreciate the commissioner's support of getting that contract done. And I'm pleased to say that the fiber has now turned up for the top of that building. So I'm going to get to gigabit speed here in just a minute. On the left, the person in the blue shirt on the right is Van Alphen, who owns the insurance agency. He is very concerned about getting internet to his area of the county and was willing to put up a tower for us. So I'd like to have Jeff Presley come up and talk a little bit about some of the customer activations, and then I'll get back up here to talk about where we're going as a company and talk more about Seven Springs in particular. So Jeff is our area manager.
Good morning, everyone. Morning. Thought I'd just share some of the different customer experiences we've had and some of their needs and how we've met them. This gentleman on the left, Mr. Thomas, he's one of our residential customers. He lives in a rural area, and we were able to bring internet access into his house. His biggest concern was that his children didn't have internet access for what they were trying to do. Now, he did tell me once we provided internet access, his son, who's about 14, disappeared in his room for about a week. So evidently our service was working good there. So. But he's been very happy with our service. As a matter of fact, I spoke with him last week, and he said, you know, we had a terrible storm a couple of weeks ago. My TV provider recycled 2 or 3 times, and my son was on his Xbox and had no interruptions whatsoever. So we've had good service there with that. The middle one is another scenario. This is a church. And what we're doing is, what I typically do is on our installs, we'll take pictures of the antenna and what we're pointing back to. And this is a red and white tower in Mount Olive, which has been a very popular tower. A lot of businesses around that we're servicing and handling. The particular on this church here, the office manager, they typically uploaded their sermons. They were running a DSL connection with about 3 meg down and about a half a meg up. So it was taking them almost hours to upload a sermon to their website. Now she does it in a matter of minutes. You know, she commented I could probably go part-time with this new service you provided me. So, you know, we're getting good feedback from our customers, which is what we like to hear. The bottom one is a businessman. He purchased this property to expand his operations. He does business internationally, and when he got there, he found he had no internet access. So he's running his company off of a MiFi hotspot. And on the third grain tower to the right, we actually have mounted 2 antennas to the top of that. So we've got one bringing in internet access to his office, and then the other one is actually shooting it down to his office as well as some residents around his area. So we were able to serve an area that had no internet access whatsoever there. Then over to the bottom right, this is a restaurant. We spoke with her about what she needed to do, and she needed to view her cameras remotely. And to do that, she was going to have to buy a higher package to get more download that she needed so she could get the upload. Our service is symmetrical, so we were able to give her 25 meg and 25 up at a very economical price. And also that's where she just provides internet service, open Wi-Fi to her restaurant customers. So just some of the scenarios of how we're helping customers and different things we run into. This is the Bryan Sports Complex here in Wayne County that I think you guys, Seymour Johnson donated the land. State-of-the-art facility. We were able to partner with them. We're providing public Wi-Fi to the entire facility, the soccer fields, the parking lot, and we've got some signs up there. We worked with Mr. Ham. I think he's the manager of the facility. He's been very happy with what we provided. And also, if I can mention at this point, that Scott Williams, the IT director for Goldsboro, has just been a tremendous asset to us. And he's made things possible for us to happen out there. I was there yesterday. Typically when I'm in town, I'll drive by and check the different units. There was a customer, or actually a person sitting out in the parking lot that was using our Wi-Fi. That was the only reason he visited there, was he pulled up and was taking advantage of our Wi-Fi. So the service is being used. Then this is a sign-up list for Wayne County. The yellow are either water towers or structures, and the gold are active customers with other customers signing up, obviously. Up at the top, I believe, is Fremont. Moving down to the middle is our Walnut Street right over here that just went live. We're about to configure it. And then in the middle, you've got a combination of the water towers from Mount Olive. You've got the UMO tower that Alan spoke of, and the Van Alphen. And then over to the right, you've got Sutton and the Grantham Inn. So at this point, we're able to service most of these customers through these towers. And we have waiting list right now in Grantham, 40 people, 7 Springs. I think Alan will speak on that a little later. We've got most of those folks waiting. So quite a few people waiting for us to get service turned up. We're trying to be slow and methodical about what we do.
Kind of looks like you might be having a few challenges in the northern part of the county.
We do, and you know, at our conference calls, it's not we can't do it, but how do we find a way to do it? That's kind of our strategy. So we've had some interesting things happen.
So are you having problems finding people that want it, or what? Because I know we got places that don't have it.
We have plenty of people that want it. Sometimes our challenge is actually getting out to them. One of my latest customers was a gentleman that was just on the other side of one of our towers, so we were able to bounce off of an existing structure to bring internet back to him. So it's always fun trying to find a way in on some of them, so we're having a real good time.
Probably got some areas up in there that don't have any tower access. You're going to have to erect a tower, or they're going to have to erect a tower.
That's correct. That's what UMO Farm did.
Yeah.
Those guys opened that up.
Cost about $10,000.
I think it was $8,000 to $10,000. And Sutton Radio has been doing a fantastic job working with those guys. The tower's up. He's got his cameras up, and I think our antennas are going up within the next 2 or 3 weeks there. Do you guys have any other questions before I turn it back over to Alan?
Keep moving forward.
Yeah. In the northern part of the county, do we need to go to some of the town council meetings to make sure that people are aware? In other words, this doesn't seem the standard for the northern part of the county not to step up to the plate, because it's our district. Of course, 3 or 4 of us are from that area. It doesn't seem right that this is not the norm, is what I'm saying, because there's certain pockets that there's no internet or anything whatsoever except by dish.
That's correct. We're having that issue in Seven Springs right now. We're available to talk to any council meetings. We're always open to going in those areas.
I would like for you to go to the Pikeville and Fremont council meeting if possible.
Now, we did speak at the Fremont Rotary.
Did you?
And we met with Barbara Aycock, I think the administrator. She's been very good to us.
Okay.
And we're working with a company, and I think Adam's going to speak about that, Legacy Biogas out in Fremont. But as far as Pikeville, I believe we're heading that way. I always love to talk to people.
Okay.
And they're going to erect the tower, aren't they?
I believe so.
So if I, and I'm very pleased to see the activity around the southern part of Wayne County and Mount Olive, and as I look at the sites that you have, so the bottom line is, if that infrastructure is there so that you can access it, that just makes it easier and more cost effective. And so my good friend in the north, someone's gonna have to put some dollars in place to make a donate.
Yeah, I can touch on that.
I'll turn that back over to Alan, but you're exactly correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You raised some very good questions. We really have not tried to go to the northern part of the county much yet. So that's part of the reason why you don't see as many signups there. What drove us to initially get the Fremont Tower done was Chip Crumpler had referred us over to Legacy Biogas, who was in dire need of having internet access, right? I don't know how much you guys know about their facility, but they're turning pig waste into electricity. Pretty amazing facility, but they have to be online. They just could not get internet. So we're basically building the network to Fremont just to serve them initially, and then we're going to offer it up to the residences. Tony Balance, some of you may know Tony, he has requested some service for Balance Farms. That was one of those cases where we would have to put up about a $10,000 tower in order to serve them, just because we don't have existing infrastructure there yet. Our approach has been not to try to charge our customers that kind of money. We think that's ridiculous. However, we do have to get a return on our capital, so we end up charging a higher monthly fee and just have them commit to several years of payback so we can make sure we get the tower cost covered. But that was the case with Tony Balance. But you'll see us do more in the northern part of the county. We need to get Seven Springs done, and we need to get a long list of Grantham customers turned up. We're getting a lot of inquiries from Suttontown and Dobbersville as well. I know it's starting to bleed out of the county, but it's amazing the number of people that are just finding out about what we're doing and just hitting us up daily with emails asking for service. I think we're going to find the same thing on the northern part of the county as well. We just haven't been too active yet because we don't have the infrastructure, but we will.
Mr. Chair. Well, I thought one of the, initially we had some pilot programs, that you've completed those, right? But my concern is that all over the county, but in the northern part of the county, I'm looking at student access to internet. That's what the concern is in the northern part of the county. It's all good for individuals to want to get, pay for having it, but we need to get to a point to where it's available to every student in this county. That's the ultimate goal, and I'd like to see a concerted effort put forward, and certainly I'm the commissioner in that district. Of course, several of us are from that area. Be glad to volunteer and help you find, make contacts if you need it, okay?
Thank you. We'll take you up on that.
I'll give you my card.
As Joe knows, we aren't shy about asking for help.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I really don't think it's that they're looking to have access for internet for that purpose. I think it's a program called Fortnite that these kids have just got to have some internet.
Now, part of the DNA of our company is we believe everyone should be online. We believe in digital inclusion, because if you're not online, you're going to miss out on educational opportunities, you're going to miss out on telehealth opportunities, applying for jobs. You have to be online to operate in today's world.
Yeah, thank you.
Seven Springs is moving forward. We're kind of delayed on that for a bit until we worked out the financials, which we now have in place. We met with Mayor Potter yesterday. He's all excited. We promised him we would be turning up customers in Seven Springs in September. Just some various pictures. The lower right is the water tower that's just north of the river. That's the one we just agreed to put the mast on. The grain silos on the left are Price Brothers Farming. Michael is talking to us about letting us use that to serve sort of the southern part of Seven Springs. His farm is located where 55 and 111 meet, and that would be a really nice location for us, and we wouldn't have to go through structural analysis fees to be on it. So we're hopeful that Michael comes through for us for that one. If any of you know him and want to put in a good word, that would be appreciated.
Do those towers have to be, what, 200 feet?
About 120 feet.
120 feet, okay.
That's why water towers work out well if the cost is right.
I know some of the grain bins are probably not quite high enough.
Right, like that one is about 60 or 70 feet. So we think we might actually have to put a tower up, but if you had let us use the land to put up a tower, that would help. And of course, we're offering them internet service in exchange too. I want to show you a few maps. The light green is coverage area. I know this probably looks like one of these weird charts. This is Seven Springs. The red dot is the water tower just north of the river, and it shows the coverage area of our antennas. One thing you'll note is it's not like a solid circle of light green. There are these dark spots, and you see along the river where there's really no homes, that it doesn't cover there. So you may hear of a resident that says, hey, I live in Seven Springs, and you promised me this service, and I can't sign up. You say, yeah, I can't deliver. They may be in one of those areas that's outside of the green. So we have to find another way of reaching them. So this is the water tower on the north side. We did a similar view of the Price Brothers Farming grain silo. That's where the red dot is here. It covers that southern part of Seven Springs pretty well. Again, there's some little gaps here and there, but it's pretty good coverage. Where we are growing, gigabit in downtown Goldsboro. To my knowledge, no one in Goldsboro, or no carrier has offered gigabit service in Goldsboro. This is 1,000 megabit up and down. Who's going to use that fastest service? Usually businesses, right? It's not going to be a residence. We charge $379 a month for it, which is really inexpensive if you think of how big the pipe is, but it's usually going to be too expensive for a resident. But for a business that needs that kind of speed, that's a phenomenal opportunity. We can offer this within a half a mile of West Walnut. The technology we're using is limited to line of sight and distance. So it is going to be limited. If somebody out by the mall wants a gigabit, it's going to be, we can't reach you. But if you're located downtown, we can. We can offer broadband service in Goldsboro from that building at slower speeds. So 25 to 100 megabit service, which you may not consider slow, but slower than gigabit. We can do that within 5 miles. So we're hopeful that the rooftop of Walnut is really going to give us great coverage over Goldsboro. We realize you have other ISPs in Goldsboro, so we're not the only one, but we're a choice. So we'll help keep the competition honest, help keep the pricing in check, and hopefully we're providing better service that people will benefit from. Grantham, we're going to start providing service there in September. And I created this slide based on the Sutton radio and TV tower that I showed you earlier, which is the red dot. Pretty wide green coverage area, as you can see, although there's holes here and there. Got good news today, if Mel's still in the room? Yeah, yes. With Chip's help and Mel's help, we're also going to install on one of the county's communication towers by the Grantham Middle School. I don't have a map here, but that's really going to fill in the entire Grantham area. So between this tower and the one we're going to assign here shortly, we're going to have great coverage for the whole Grantham part of the county. Fremont, we kind of mentioned before. This is a picture of David Mercer at the bottom in the yellow shirt. He's the project manager for the Legacy Biogas project. That's one of the turbine engines that's turning the pig waste into electricity. Their new building is up on the right, and that's where our tower is going to go in. And then the Fremont Yellow Water Tower is the one we're going to use. And I wanted to close on this. This is something we talked about in some of the original conversations we had with Chip, is we believe everybody should be online, including people who live in public housing. And we've turned up a public housing neighborhood in Charlotte, and we proposed the same thing to the city of Goldsboro. So we made a proposal to 6 different neighborhoods. Picture on the right with me and Alyssa Rouse at the West Haven neighborhood here in Goldsboro. We haven't heard yet if they're going to hire us to do it, but we have basically offered blanket broadband coverage to every single person in those 6 communities. So just because they're low income doesn't mean they don't have access to broadband. The cost for us was attractive because it was a consolidated area. If you've ever been through some of these neighborhoods, they're all pretty compact. The buildings are close to each other. They're not all spread out. So our cost to serve them was quite attractive. So we're hopeful that they pick us, and we'll be doing that. I know it's outside of our pilot program, but it was something I wanted to make you aware of. And with that, I'll take questions.
Questions?
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have a forecast counter for eastern and western Wayne counties yet?
West of Grantham, like toward Dobbersville?
No, I'm talking eastern Wayne County and western Wayne County, divided 117.
Not yet, I think, is the answer. So toward...
You're just looking at New Hope and Rosewood areas.
Got it. Not yet. It's not on the list. Doesn't mean we won't get to it. It's just not on the current list.
So when will you be developing that counter?
We anticipate that it's going to take about 3 years to do countywide. So we need to get everybody up in the southern part of the county. So Grantham and Seven Springs are really going to consume us the rest of this year. We're turning up Fremont this year as well. We'll have to put some dates in for addressing some of the rest of the county. It's a great question. I'll be happy to answer that next time I'm up here.
You got schools there for foundation for you to start with, so that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? Thanks a lot. Keep on growing.
Thank you.
Move faster.
Thanks, Al.
Craig.
Do you have a business card I can give Ray?
Yes.
I'm going to give Carol a copy of the presentation so she can distribute it.
And all that contact information is on your website too, isn't it? All that contact information is on your website too, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes.
I've looked at it. Okay, moving on. Executive Jetport Expansion Project Contract.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the board's aware, we have received a grant from the North Carolina Department of Aviation for our corporate expansion at the Wayne Jetport. We are looking at this and separating it as 2 different projects. One's a waterline project that will provide water for the sprinkler service for some of the hangars that will be required, and the other was for doing some of the repair and grading and site work for the corporate expansion. We have bid this out. We have worked with our engineers, WK Dixon. We received 4 bids. We did have a low bid that removed their bid within 72 hours after they bid the project. So they were disqualified. So we had 3 qualified bids. And in looking at it, and we've also negotiated some with low bidder, which is ST Wooten Company out of Wilson. We would like to recommend to the Board of Commissioners that we accept a base bid and addendum 1 of $2,537,093.70. And if the board is agreeable with this, we will begin working on the construction contract and moving forward with ST Wooten.
Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I move approval subject to continuing negotiations with S.T. Wooten on the price.
What we're saying right now is there are some additional negotiations, but this would be the max construction price. But we're still trying to negotiate with them since they're the low bidder on some of the mobilization issues.
I like that idea.
I make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Is there any discussion?
What was that figure again?
$2,537,000, $537.93.70.
And that's not just coming out of our pocket, too, it's sheriff costs.
That's a 10% match.
That's what I want that to be clear.
Yes, sir. The rest of it, but also we do have, is separated. Remember, the water line project will come later.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, if you please raise your right hand. Thank you. All right. Consent agenda, we talked about this pretty lengthy in the earlier session. Is there any more discussion about it? If not, I'll accept the motion to approve it. Yes, sir.
The resolution for the preliminary assessment for Canterbury Village and North Creek subdivision. Since we are in our regular session at this point, I'm wondering if we need to get Andrew to come back up, and I see we have some members present from that.
I don't have a problem with that. You'll do
Let
that.
him recap if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, as we discussed in our previous session, so on August 2nd, the roads were approved by the NC DOT Board of Transportation. There's a formality right now where they need to be assigned numbers and be entered into the database. We knew that wasn't going to be done before today. So DOT is stuck with the roads at this point. They're approved. There's no more construction. So staff is comfortable moving forward with the assessments. What's in front of you today is to declare the cost of the project and to establish a preliminary roll. Both of those are in the agenda. Then the next step would be on August 21st, we would have a public hearing where all the property owners would be noticed. We would run an ad in the paper. We'd give them at least 10 days notice, and then the public hearing would be set for the 21st. At that hearing, any affected property owner could come forward. They could make whatever comments they wanted, and then the board would have the option to confirm the preliminary roll that's been drafted at this point. Once that's done, we have to wait 20 days. The tax assessor would then run an ad in the newspaper notifying everyone that they have 30 days to pay in full. If they pay within 30 days, then there's no interest. If they choose not to, then the payments are spread out over 10 years in equal installments. They would be due January 5th. As we stated in our previous session, the first payment, since the tax bills have already gone out, will have to be made to the finance office. Our plan at this point is to have finance actually submit invoices after that 30-day period runs. They would mail those to the property owners directly, and then payments would be made for the first year directly to the finance office. All subsequent years, they would be included in the tax bill, and they would be done in January when the interest runs on the tax bills. So that's the steps moving forward. Where we're at on cost right now, each individual lot, it's based off 121 lots. That was when the preliminary roll or the preliminary resolution was passed at the very beginning. We had 121 lots, and each lot was going to be assessed equally. The total right now is $15,879.38. So that's per lot. You'll see on the preliminary roll that I've handed out as part of this resolution, it has the property owner's name. I've actually included a roll number, so if anybody wants to come up at the public hearing, it'll be easy for them to identify I'm number so-and-so, and they can talk to the board. I thought that might streamline it just a little bit. Included is a brief description of the lot, also the deed reference, and then the total amount assessed. There was one revision to the preliminary roll. I believe that was 46 and 47. Just to clarify, that was actually 2 lots at the passage of the preliminary resolution. So that's going to be modified, that both of those lots, it would be lot 38 and 39 of Canterbury Phase 6, would each be assessed the full assessment. So that lot would basically get 2 assessments. We did talk briefly during our previous session about the cost. This cost did come in significantly lower than what was originally bid out. I believe it was about $2,300 or so per lot was the cost savings so far. So that's where we're at this point. All that's in front of you today is to declare the cost of the project, accept the preliminary roll, and then we will set the public hearing for the 21st.
Okay. Questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. This is a long time coming. This is what, been over a 2-year process, Commissioners? And 3, okay. Boy, time flies, doesn't it? But this was our first one, by the way. So, but this hopefully not the last, Commissioner Daughter. But there were some issues here that were that we had no control of. Even the contractor. Things that were possibly done on the right-of-way of the DOT by citizens and so forth. The drainage issue and the right-of-way issues, as everybody knows, was a major cost in this project. So anyone that's looking at the future to try to have their roads done really need to try to take care of as much as you can on the DOT right-of-way. You know, driveway entrances that aren't the code, and tiles and all sprinkler systems that's on the shoulder of the road. You know, these things, you know, cost money. So having said that, I want to thank the commissioners and everyone concerned that, through this process, these citizens are pleased with what they have. You drive through this subdivision at this time, and it's completely different. I got pictures. I have pictures of before and after, and I'm telling you, when you had motorcycles that were flipping because the potholes were so deep, now it's really good. So I want to thank everyone concerned. Thank this Board of Commissioners and all the staff for what you've done, and of course the citizens at North Creek and Canterbury Village that stuck in there. Boy, it was tough keeping that 75%. But they did it, and I want to congratulate you on that. Thank you.
And just briefly, the letter that will go out, assuming the consent agenda is passed, that'll go out includes my contact information for my office. So any property owners that are present, or if they want to spread the word, if they have questions about how the payments are going to work, where they need to make payments, any other questions, our contact information will be on there so we can field calls before the 21st if somebody can't show up. And it should have all the information in their letter. So if you have any questions, feel free to give our office a call.
Thanks, Andrew.
What was that total amount again?
Of the total product?
No, the total per lot.
Per lot is
as well as the total cost.
$15,879.38.
That can be spread out over a 10-year period?
Over 10 years at 5% interest.
So we're looking at $1,600 a year.
And their overall cost was
$1,921,405.04.
Thank you. There were some folks behind you that wanted those numbers.
Okay, now I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Got a motion on the floor. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Moving to new business, we took out number 1, so we got a public affairs. Good to go. Kind of soft there. Hey, Carol, before you start that, I think we need a 5-minute break.
That's a great idea.
We were talking about it too. Okay, we're back. So we can catch that video now.
This is attendance by Wayne County Public Affairs. Habitat for Humanity held their annual Women's Build 2018 event. We filmed 2 episodes of Cooking with Michelle Estrada from the North Carolina Cooperative Extension, including a broccoli and cauliflower salad, as well as an almond and mushroom burger. The Wayne County Development Alliance held their annual luncheon. Governor Roy Cooper visited the Hurricane Matthew Recovery Relief Application Center. And wellness nurse Michelle Hill stopped by to talk colorectal cancer. We caught up with Jessica Strickland in the garden to talk tomato rot and got an exclusive look at the Farm Credit Farmers Market before it opened. Seymour Johnson Air Force Base opened their brand new state-of-the-art medical facility on base. And we caught up with Don Willis with GWTA to talk about the new route in Mount Olive. The Farm Credit Farmers Market cut the ribbon this month, and John Bell was honored at East Point for his years of service. What's Happening in Wayne continued, a weekly show where we highlight events going on in Wayne County over weekends for families. And Julie Beck from the Mount Olive Chamber of Commerce stopped by to talk about things going on in Mount Olive. We produced new promo videos for the North Carolina Cooperative Extension. And caught up with airmen from Seymour Johnson to talk about the Adopt an Airman program. Mark Kohlberg stopped by to talk about free summer meals for children and teens in Wayne County during the summer, as well as summer camps going on. Library staff from the Wayne County Public Library and from Goldsboro High School stopped by to talk about the new racial healing grant that was just acquired by the library. We visited the Emergency Operations Center with Craig Brown to talk about hurricane preparedness. And Bill Graham stopped by to talk about the Purple Heart Banquet happening at the Maxwell Center. New billboards included Farmer Appreciation as well as Clear the Shelter coming up in August. And as always, Public Affairs handled the social media, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube for the county. This has been Catch a Glimpse, produced by Wayne County Public Affairs. We'll see you again next month.
Good job.
I've got to say, we've got a full staff now, and there's just no telling what those 3 will do. They've redone their office over there. It's being painted as we speak, and it should be finished up. But the creativity and the ideas that they have, I'm just astounded by them every single day, and I'm really proud of what they're doing. So if you get a chance, stop by.
I
See
did.
their new office. And
I didn't realize there were windows in there.
exactly.
You could see it's bright.
One's coming.
Yes, sir.
It was dark before.
There was a lot of things shown to us, but I would like to be considered that as you're talking about whomever it is, those folk have an opportunity to describe what they're here for. There was a narration of what they were. I mean, a glimpse of this, a glimpse of that. Folk were here to share this, but I think I would like to hear those folks sharing
That's
what
what
they're
you'll see
here
on
about
Channel
versus,
10.
ma'am?
That's what you'll see on Channel 10, the actual interviews. In the Catch a Glimpse, we're just showing you.
Just showing us.
Just showing you.
Oh, okay, because I thought that was what was going to be
No,
shown on
sir.
Channel 10. Thank you, ma'am, because that was, I got it.
No
I'm
problem.
clear. All right.
Craig, look like you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The biggest thing I really want to mention to everybody, I hope you've seen that we had the resignation of Greg Rule as our airport director. And I just wanted to publicly thank Greg for the job that he has done. Greg is leaving us for some family issues, and he's worked with the county for about 7 years, and we're very thankful for the work that Greg has done at the airport. Greg was really part of working with the engineers and the airport commission and getting the grant that we just approved in the construction. And I just wanted to publicly thank Greg for all that he's done for Wayne County and his commitment to that airport, and we wish him well. And that's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Mayo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a social services board meeting, and we're continue making progress. We do have some areas that needed working on, but overall, our director, Tammy Shrinker, is still doing a fantastic job, and we're certainly glad to have her here. I also attended the Pam Minshew, the clerk of court, retirement, and of course they're swearing in of her son Justin Minshew as the clerk of court. I also attended the Atlantic Coast Pipeline presentation out at the Maxwell Center, and also had a phone conference with the NC East Alliance, and there's a lot of changes being made there. John Chafee is retiring, so there's a lot of restaffing that's got to go on. I think one of the main things I wanted to bring up is that after it was reported that by the newspaper that an early voting site in northern Wayne County could not be obtained, several of us started making phone calls. And of course, when I say us, I'm talking about several commissioners, Craig Honeycutt, our county manager. And I want to personally thank the Wayne County Board of Elections for voting to accept Harmony Lodge in Pikeville for early voting. I also want to thank Mr. Travis Crocker and Mr. Ronnie Thompson from Pikeville, who, by the way, I grew up with Ronnie Thompson, for providing this contact of Harmony Lodge. But furthermore, I want to say a big thank you to Mr. Ronnie Jones, who a member of the Harmony Lodge, for making this happen within a 48-hour time restraint. We had 48 hours before the Board of Elections met to finalize the voting sites in Wayne County. So I thank the county for offering as an alternative the Jetport, but as an early voting site. But Pikeville is a much more convenient site for the majority of citizens in the northern part of the county. So I want to thank everyone that was concerned and the contacts that was made to make this happen, to serve the citizens of not only in northern Wayne County, but we need to do this across our county. Finally, I want to say publicly that the Board of Elections over this county does have problems finding volunteers for site locations. That shouldn't be the case. That should not be the case. We need to step up to the plate countywide and make it convenient for the citizens in our communities to have an easy place to go. There's no reason for a person to have to travel in early voting from Fremont to the Jetport, which was one of the only alternative we had if we hadn't have found another alternative. So I want to encourage not only the public held buildings here in Wayne County and municipality, we need to look at the private sector. The private sector was exactly who stepped up to the plate in this case. So I want to encourage everyone in Wayne County and business people to work with the Board of Elections. This is a right that they have paid for and we have paid for as citizens of the United States. Let's do everything we can to make it convenient for them to vote for their choice, no matter what party it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Carty.
Yes, sir. I had an opportunity to attend some of my committees, DSS, Board of Health, and of course Board of Health also comes up tomorrow, and we've already got a notice to be there. Had an interesting opportunity to hear about the pipeline that's going to come down through North Carolina, out of Virginia, and I believe that it was end up in Robeson County, and that gives an opportunity for economic development in that corridor. And of course, we still don't know exactly what benefits it'll have for Wayne County, but we hope that some something will bleed this way, so as to help our citizens with better jobs, that will have a direct impact on relieving the whole poverty cycle for Eastern North Carolina. I would like to follow up on my good friend, Mr. Merrill from the Tribune, and saying a word about Southern Wayne High School. And I may not have the date exactly right, but somewhere about 3 years ago, because I think that's what it would take to get back to when Joe Daugherty was chairman, that subject came up for funding for Southern Wayne High School. And at that time, there had been a vote to put the Southern Wayne High School in the 6 to 10 project range, and some of us got our heads together and got it in the 1 to 5. And I may not have the dollars exactly right, but I think there's about $3.2 million voted on and put in place. Is that right? So that we will guarantee that some work was going to be done down there. Now, citizens talking, got together. They wanted a gym that was representative of what has been seen around the county, and that'll take another $1.5 million probably added on to that. I will officially stand concerned if we do not be able to negotiate something between the county board and the Board of Education, that those dollars are not put in place. And I would appeal to all who has a vote on any board, ours or any other board, not to back down from that commitment, because it's been held in place over these years to make sure that that happens. So I reach out to all concerned to find a way to come up with that. And as I understand it, all the dollars that it's going to take are public dollars. It's citizen dollars. No matter whose pot it comes out of, it's money that is citizens' dollars. And we all need to remember that. We're voting on these things, not because it's our money, it's because it's the citizens' money. And Joe made a good prayer this morning that we try to maintain the ability to vote and act on what's best for the greater group. We also, during our budget session, because of some concerns and some lobbying from different groups, moved away from a property tax. Property taxes has an impact on everyone. It would have personally impacted me, just like any other person who owns property, right down from you owning your home. One of the things that caused me not to speak against the sales tax was because I have a large constituency that have retired from their careers, as I have, who started their careers 30 to 35 years ago. They've retired. They own their homes. And so they're not getting any immediate increases in their salaries. They're having to pay the property taxes out of what they have. So when I looked at that aspect, I said, okay, there's a certain number of folk that will be hurt if the property taxes went up. And when I hear the different speeches about the advantages of the sales tax, I said, all right, maybe we need to consider that. And I talked to some of that same constituents, and they said, let the burden be shared by everyone. And that is a concept. But there are also folk out there that would say that the sales tax will hurt those at the lower end of the economic spectrum because they spend more of their direct dollars on things they're going to spend them for immediately. But that is a choice that folk make. And so there's going to be pros and cons, but I want folk to understand that it's been said to me that the property tax would bring in about $2.4 million a year. I believe I heard that dollar figure versus a lot less over property taxes. So we would be able to go around the county and do good things for all those school buildings that my friend Mr. Merrill spoke of that are been built 50 years ago. It wasn't just Meadow Lane that needed to be upgraded. It's Brogdon Primary, Brogdon Elementary, and some other schools out in the western part of the county. I think you spoke about the school on 581. It's got age on it. So we need to look at all of our public school facilities and find a way to bring those up to speed. And we do have a good board here. And while we're still together, I want us to make sure that we finish the game and do some good things. I want to close by, and this is not taking an outright swipe at the medical profession and the pharmacists, but I am. And I don't apologize for that. A lot of us are reaching the age where we're using quite a bit of medical services, and the prescription medicine is burdensome. I'm only going to give you one example of a fellow I talked to just 2 days ago. He was on a medication that right this minute, because of some combinations, he was having to come out of his pocket with about $178 a month for this particular injectable having to do with diabetes. He was on insulin. It was costing him $178 out of his pocket. The insurance company, I think, was paying about $3,500. That's a lot. And I think he's moving into a category where he's going to have to start picking up more of the burden. And when I hear that, it raises the interest in me that he can't afford too much more. So I want this request to be heard by all those who have the authority to do something about it in North Carolina. We need to look at and force our national representative, president on down, to do something about what is becoming an astronomical cost of staying healthy. And I'm not pointing fingers at any governor or any president, but I want everyone to work hard to make this happen. And so that's just my concerns this morning. I share them with you out of a personal concern for my constituency and myself and all those who are agreeing around me. This stuff is going to cost money, so we need to work on it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Dollar.
I was glad to see that we have decided on a new economic developer here in Wayne County, and the pressure's on is all I can say to Mark. Mark does come from a long history of economic development from our area, understands Eastern North Carolina. He's one of us, and I really think it was a great hire on our part. I want to also thank the North Carolina Department of Transportation because they've awarded Wayne County over $3 million in grants for our jetport projects. And those projects are important. The jetport is an economic engine, and we need to make sure we invest in that economic engine. Today, this board, and I appreciate it so much, the vote that we're moving forward with the corporate hangar project, and also the availability of us at least getting one T hangar on the projects. Fred Fontana. Now talk about a success story. What a good hire. But yesterday was his last day. He retired, and we got a new developer, a new director. But GWTA, and Bill, you recall this, we will go on to the board, and Joe, and what do we find? We find basically they're ready just to throw their hands up and file bankruptcy. I mean, it was in dire straits. And we reached out to NCDOT again, and they recommended Fred, and we brought him in. He turned that organization around from almost bankruptcy to where he was just released the figures of $1.2 million in reserves. Now, talk about a success story. That is dramatic. So, well job done, Fred, and enjoy retirement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think he's coming to see us next month.
I hope so. I hope so. Hope we got a big plaque for him.
Mr. Bell.
Oh, I thought I was going to be last so I could take all the time that I need.
Well, Joe was short, so you
Yeah, we always go back to
Oh, okay.
We always do.
Didn't have any committee meetings, but I did work on some county projects, making some suggestions to the county manager Not that we approved anything, it's just that something I brought up, and I won't go into details now because the commissioner's got to have a chance to take a look at it also. But I'm always trying to think out of the box, how to save the county money and, not spend. Y'all heard me make that statement at the budget meeting that I won't let Commissioner Joe Doherty spend all the money this year. And, but anyway, he's doing real good. He's not going that way. But I think the projects that we are looking at, the commissioner will be very satisfied with savings of millions and millions and millions of dollars. So I won't, as I said, I won't go into detail right now. But I think that's about it. I was trying to think of one other thing that I had, and I forgot what it was.
Come back to you like I normally do.
I always come back, though. Yeah, let me come back because I forgot what I was going to talk about. The other.
Okay, Mr. Aycock, you go ahead and get it then.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been kind of out of place for last couple of 3 weeks. I've had cataract surgery. As you can see, I no longer have to wear glasses except to read, and I'm tickled to death over it.
I can steal your paperwork now.
Yeah, and also I'd like to thank the county manager and the staff over at Corporate Extension for taking care of extending the farmers market hours on Saturday till 2 o'clock. I'd heard several people say that they thought it would be a good move, and thank y'all for trying it. If it doesn't work, you can always go back. But and also, some of you may think that I might be underdressed for a commissioners meeting, but I feel like I'm overdressed in this T-shirt. As some may know, my granddaughter has just been put on the lung transplant list, and this T-shirt is for my granddaughter, Emily. And it says "Lungs for Em." All of her life, her name is Emily, but she's always been called Em. And I just want to thank the organ donor the groups that promotes that. I never thought I would be in the position to have a family member to be in need of an organ transplant. But she just turned 18 in January, and she is so excited because she's fought cystic fibrosis and breathing problems all of her life. And so I feel like I'm overdressed today instead of underdressed. And I know that a lot of y'all have ordered T-shirts. The second order has not come in, but they're on the way. And I'm gonna stand up because there's more writing on the back, and I'm putting in the plug for organ donors. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And Mr. Gurley.
That's hard to follow. We mentioned a couple weeks ago, Craig, Chip, and the chairman and I went out and had the opportunity to meet with the new director of Cherry Hospital, Mr. Dale Armstrong, and we're hoping he'll be coming before us the next couple of weeks or so. Had a very good visit, a lot of interesting facts that it was kind of mind-boggling. And we've offered Public Affairs and Channel 10 also to get some exposure for Cherry Hospital because it's a valuable asset to Wayne County economically as well as on the actual mission. But that's it.
Yeah, that's quite a facility out there, too, isn't it?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay.
Are you ready now? Okay.
I did attend one meeting, the facility meeting, and they gave me permission to get with probation and parole and Chip, not Chip, but
Kendall.
Mr. Lee.
Kendall.
And to come up with a plan, and we did that, and I think we owe Mr. Kendall a lot of praise. He really took his time, and he
cooperated with myself and probation and parole and came up with a solution as to how we can make that place work. Winston-Salem, you know, y'all brought that form up and said that this is what they were going to do. They turned that whole thing down. That's not going to be. They got to go back and rebuild that place to bring it up to what we're going to do now. But we're going to make you proud of us and not spend a lot of money doing it. So I think that was a good move. Thank you.
And actually, that's why I put you on the facilities committee, because I know you had some ideas. Right. And you've come up with some good ones, and I'm very pleased that you come up with those ideas.
Thank you.
And it really could save us a lot of money. I'm glad we changed hours on the farmer's market. I'm there every week, so. And I was running a little late Saturday, so it was extended out to 2 o'clock so I could go and get my tomatoes that I wanted. So the place was full. Agree with Fred Fontana. Outstanding job. We really got the right guy when we hired him. And I'm sorry I missed Pam's retirement. I didn't see the invitation until I opened my commissioner's packet on Sunday. And it had already taken place. But I wish her well. I really do.
We're talking about coming back. So let me another comment. And this is for public consumption. Each one of the county commissioners, and nobody asked me to say this, but each one of the county commissioners has a list of committees that we serve on, and they come up every month. And then we have invitations from various and sundry groups, and some of us attend ones that others don't attend. But I want to say this to the public. Every month or 6 weeks, the newspaper, I believe it's the News August, and it may be in the Tribune, but I know in the News August, they will run our telephone numbers, email addresses, and how to get up with us. And I'll ask the public, before you decide that we haven't come to your meeting, email us and let us know in time, and we'll try to make your meetings. But we can't make a meeting that we heard about a day after it happened. And I'll just leave it at that. But please call us in time. Some folk just call us on the telephone and talk, and others want us to come to meetings. But we have to know in time. And I'll just say thank you and look in the newspaper or call our office, and they will let you know how to get in touch with us. Thank you.
Goes right into what I was getting ready to just say.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We had, as you well know, we had some changes in both leadership on the board of the hospital and the staff, which got me promoted on that board. I've been spending a great deal of my time out there. I got to go out there tonight. I got to go out there tomorrow. I was out there yesterday. So that's the point. You know, people don't understand the number of other meetings and commitments that we have in this community. And I don't want to turn anybody down, but my God, I got to sleep sometime. But the hospital is really, things are really shaping up. We've got a really good board. We will be going, and Epic will come on board. That's the new software system in September. And my God, I hope it works, because it is very, very expensive. It goes to the reason your pharmacy stuff costs so much, because the cost of medical is just outrageous. It's outrageous. But anyway, I think we're turning that ship over there, and being aligned with UNC is very helpful to the hospital. We would have had to go with either Vidant or Carolinas, or what do they call them, Atrium? What do they call them now? Because the community hospital cannot stand alone by itself anymore. You just will not make it. But hopefully we're headed in the right direction. And I spent a lot of time over there. The highlight of my week last week was at the Maxwell Center at the Purple Heart Banquet. I called James Wade yesterday, and I told him that you let your staff know, Camille, because I think Camille was in charge of that, what an outstanding job they did of setting that place up. It was really nice. The state PH director got up and said of all the banquets he's been to, this was the greatest venue he had ever seen. And the real highlight, and I complimented Steve Herron earlier about the story about Colonel Yates and what he had to say. His words touched every heart in that room. Of course, myself and David Ham had to get up and speak after. We were we were a really big letdown after what he did. But it's an honor to me to go there every year and be a co-chair of that, because those people have given so much of their lives to this. And having said that, I think we need to go back in closed session. Is that correct? For the same reason, or? Okay, so everybody should go in closed session.
So moved.
All those in favor? Please raise your right hand. We're in closed session.